Welcome back, everybody! Got a great video for you today. A lot of you know I spent a lot of time off the grid living in my camper with my family out in the middle of nowhere. I've done some previous videos on solar setups in the past, and I'm getting more and more questions requesting what my current setup is. I'm changing everything up today. Bouge RV. At least that's what I think they're called. Nobody knows how to pronounce B-O-U-G-E RV. Bogue, Bouge. They said, hey, we're going to send you out whatever you want. I said, okay, well, I've been kind of researching your solar panels. Send me 5 of those. So I got a full kilowatt. There's some out in the backyard. There's some already on top of the camper. They sent me a charge controller. I said, well, hey, since you're in the season of giving, give me 4 of your 100 amp hour batteries. So each one of these batteries has a 1280 watt hour capacity. These are going to be wired in a series parallel configuration. Now I know these are mostly just van lifers and vehicle dwellers and stuff that make these videos, but here on the Handyman we try to do things right so that the solar panels aren't going to blow off. The leading screw hole is going to go into the rafter. $50 a piece for these metric nylon washers, or these metric nylon nuts. Son of a bitch. So I've been racking my brain on how I'm going to get all these components underneath the bed. I've already changed the way I'm going to lay out the batteries, but I may change them back so that I don't waste all those cables that I already made. These here are the components that have to get mounted on a board. This is 2000 watt pure sine wave power inverter. This is the solar charge controller. This is a 50 amp breaker. This goes between the battery and the solar charge controller. It's basically how you just turn the battery off from going to there. This here is another breaker. This is where solar comes in and then goes through this breaker into the solar charge controller. And again, you don't really need breakers. It's a cheap way to get a shut off. This little guy here converts 24 volts down to 12 volts. What is this fancy thing here? This is a shunt. The shunt goes on the negative side of your system. Those batteries there will have one black wire that goes to here, and then they'll have a black wire that goes from here to the negative post on the power inverter. I'm going to use this basically as a bus bar. So all the negatives come back to the black down there. All the positives will come to here. Pretty simple. This guy here is a remote on-off switch for this power inverter. The reason you want to be able to turn this thing on and off remotely, because it consumes electricity just being in standby mode. If nothing's running, no microwave, no coffee maker, no nothing, it's still consuming electricity. This here is a remote battery monitor. This hooks up to the shunt. Yeah, that whole shunt thing there is just to be able to monitor the state of charge of this battery bank. Now, these batteries, I'm very suspect of these things. There's very few reviews on the internet. There are 2 in which they cut this apart and found that there were components unplugged or had come loose inside just from shipping. They hadn't even installed them in anything. So I don't know how well these are going to work. I have these all charged on 12 volts, 100%. I did it twice, and there's a specific way on how you have to hook these things up. And they all have to be fully charged before you put anything in series. What's weird is when I received them, they were at 13.3 to 13.4 volts. After charging them, they are now 13.1. These are lithium iron phosphate batteries, and the internet says you cannot tell the state of charge by the voltage. So I'm just going to ignore the voltage for now. I'm going to build the entire system, put it all together, and see if it works. You're probably wondering, why does this guy need so much electricity just to go camping? And I agree with you. It's kind of crazy how much electricity I need to go camping. The main reason that I like to have a lot of electricity, solar power, off-grid power, are these here. These are my electric bikes. There's half of my collection. I build high-powered off-road electric bikes. I got one here that's in the process of being converted, one behind me that has been converted for over a year. But right in front of me, I got a bike that's not for off-road. This is a cargo bike, Hovsko. Not quite sure of the pronunciation. It's a cargo bike that I have set up to take my kids around. So whenever we go camping, it's me and 2 kids on this bike and my wife on her bike. You know, I said I would never do another electric bike review again unless it was the one. And so far, this is the one. It has hydraulic disc brakes. That is a big difference from the other bikes that are at this price point. They don't have hydraulic disc brakes. I didn't have to mess with the brakes. The brakes are amazing. It's got a good sized battery. The range is great. Hauls the kids around no problem. But with me and the kids, that's like 270 pounds. They say this will haul 450 pounds around. Something that's unique to this bike, and especially this price point, it has torque sensing cranks. The harder you push on the pedal, it's like having a throttle. So you don't even really need to use the thumb throttle. You want to go faster? Just push down a little bit on the pedals. All my other bikes have what's called a cadence sensor in the cranks. Seat's a little hard for both the rider, the driver, and the passengers. Little hard on the seats. So I'll probably be swapping the seat out and adding an extra cushion for the kids. So far the range is doing great. I haven't gone through one battery yet, and that takes a while to go 40 miles, the kids on here. It's got lights, front and back, brake lights, no horn, no bell. There will be a link down in the description of where you can get one of these. If you got questions about electric bikes, this electric bikes, or these electric bikes, or this crazy solar system that I put together to charge all these electric bikes, put those down in the comments. Stick around to the end of the video to see if I burned the camper down, which burned the garage down, which burnt my house down, and we are all living out here in the workshop. Hopefully the lighting's not too bad in here. So this is the bed. Bed's propped up with a 2x4, and this is where everything has to go. This here is an auxiliary 30-gallon water tank. Got another 40 underneath the camper. So the batteries are all going to go there, and I think I'm going to have to make a platform that covers over the top of all this, and all those individual components will go on a board that's right here.
No.
Is anybody in there?
Yeah.
You want to go on a bike ride?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll go on a bike ride as soon as your brother gets home, okay? I gotta clean this mess up. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Everything's hooked up and turned off. Can't turn it on until 6 hours after your last battery connection is made. Hopefully they're not as bad as the ones I've seen in other reviews, and they work perfect. I highly doubt it, but I really want to be wrong on that one. But you can see that breaker is off. That is the battery connection to the charge controller. Don't have the solar wires put in yet. Shunt's all hooked up, ground's hooked up. Main battery disconnect is off. The only last thing that I need to do, I need to read the directions, is this shunt needs 12 volts. So it either can take 24 volts or it can take 12 volts, or maybe it can even take more. Easily get 12 volts out of my step down converter. That's what this is right here. This converts 24 volts down to 12 volts, and it should give me 30 amp. First thing in the morning, coming out and throwing the switch. We'll have a fire extinguisher at hand, and then we'll throw all the switches. We're gonna give this thing a full test tomorrow. Fire in the hole! Okay, nothing. That's a good thing, because nothing's turned on. So now when I flip this down, we're gonna energize the charge controller. We have a fault. I gotta change the settings. Got a battery over voltage. It's in a 24 volt configuration and it's still set for 12 volts. Success. So for this next test, we're gonna power up the power inverter. And I have seen situations where just turning this on triggers the BMS in the battery to show a fault and turn them down. But we're gonna hope for the best here. Ready, set. All right, showing 25.6 volts. I got this extension cord, plug this in just like that, and now I'm gonna take the shore power and plug it into this cable here. I just plugged in the camper plug, the shore power plug, into the other end of this extension cord. I have this off, so as soon as I turn this on, the camper should come alive. Microwave just kicked on, I heard a beep. All the lights are on. So right now we have 120 volts coming out of that power inverter into the camper, down into the camper's breaker panel, which is down here, and its converter. And it's converting that 120 volts back down to 12 volts. That's how our 12 volt lights are on. We've got a nice coffee mug filled with water. So I'm going to put the camera back over there so we can monitor the smoke when I turn this on, see if there's any pops. Again, we're showing 26.5 volts. It's interesting, the voltage is going up on these batteries, and we're consuming, it says 100 watts, and it just cycles through it. And I don't think there's a way to keep it on one thing. So this is the watts. We're going to be kind of watching that. Anyways, here we go. 2, 0, 0, start. Okay, microwave is cranking. We're using 1.5 kilowatts. This fan just turned on, down to 25.5 volts. Everything's working good. So this should run 2,000 watts continuous, and we're only consuming 1.5. Don't smell any electrical burning. We got hot water, it's almost boiling. Now it's time to plug in some solar power and see if we're officially off the grid. Negative part of the solar panel is going in first. I just have it run through the door right now because I'm going to be doing quite a bit of testing before I take this out on the open road. The ground's hooked up now. The positive from the solar array goes into this breaker. There we go, we had another LED light turn on. So we should have some solar power going in. Shows we got 75 watts going in. It's a cloud cover right now. We should get some sun here in a few minutes. Up to 170 watts going in. Now this MPPT charge controller will move up and down to find the right amount of electricity to put into those batteries. Here's the solar panel setup. 246 in series. I'll show you how I've got them mounted here. This is just temporary with these. These are going to go down the refrigerator. This is butyl tape that is underneath the brackets. You can see I made this line here. This is the roof rafter. These are 2-inch, 1/4-inch lag bolts that go right into the roof rafter. I got to trim this off here and then go over the entire thing with Dicor. Dicor is like a self-leveling RV roofing caulk. This here is Dicor, and it's actually due to be redone. You can see right here there's a crack in it, and that just happens over time. Underneath here is butyl tape, just like that, and then you go over the whole thing with Dicor. It comes out white to start with, and then it attracts dust and gets dirty. That's why this is so dirty. Space heater's been cranking away on high heat for 10 minutes. So as of right now, I'm calling this a success. There's still some things to be figured out. The shunt, I've got to get that hooked up, and I also have to hook up the 24 to 12 volt converter. So what'd you think of today's video? It's a little different than home improvement. It's camper improvement. But if you live in California, it might be more home improvement. Every new house in California has to have both solar panels and batteries in their house. Everything you see on that piece of plywood is supersized and put into a big metal cabinet in California. They take in a lot more solar. They have an output to the grid, an output to your house, and an output for your battery bank. You have to have batteries in your house in California if you're getting a new house built in California. A very interesting hobby. A lot of guys just like building different solar setups, harnessing the power of the sun, ripping the cobalt and the lithium out of the earth for our own amusement. That's going to become more relevant. The raw materials to make these solar panels, to make these batteries, the copper, all this copper that's in the connections and in all the wires. That all has to get mined out of the earth in Africa, then shipped to China, put through the Chinese factories, then put on another ship and shipped across the world, then put in tractor trailers and shipped to your home so that you can have electricity when you go camping to charge your electric bicycles. Quite the ordeal we're in here. A lot of that stuff's dug out of the earth by hand. By babies. Oh man, that is not a laughing matter. Probably have to cut that part out. If you guys want to have a conversation about it, let's do that down in the comments. I'm messing around with the camera settings. So I know earlier I was out here talking about the Hovsco. Why don't they have normal names? The electric bike, the orange one, and it looked like my face was a cartoon character or someone drew over it with a crayon. I'm not sure what it looks like now. I've been messing around with the ISO max, the shutter speed. I think that's what I've been messing around with. So every time you take a GoPro into a different lighting condition, you have to change the settings. If I'm inside the camper and it's darker, showing the underneath the bed, you got to go into the settings and change the settings. I go up on the roof, got to change the settings. Come into the workshop, got to change the settings. You can't put a GoPro on auto and then just go film. It doesn't work very well unless you're outside in bright sunlight. A lot of times I forget to change those settings. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.